The void whispered secrets only the engines of the Stardust Drifter could understand. Captain Valerius, a man itched with the harsh realities of interstellar trade, nursed a lukewarm synth coffee, his gaze fixed on the swirling nebulae painting the viewport. He'd seen wonders and horrors aplenty in his decades traversing the galactic routes, but this latest haul promised little more than a meager profit margin and a headache. "Anything interesting on the scanners, Jessa?" he rumbled, his voice a gravelly baritone that seemed to vibrate through the small bridge. Jessa, his first mate, a whirlwind of efficiency and sharp wit, barely glanced up from her console. "Usual cosmic debris, Captain. A few rogue asteroids playing tag. And, wait a minute, there's something unusual." Valerius straightened, his interest piqued. Jessa rarely used the word unusual unless something truly warranted it. "Elaborate." "It's an energy signature, Captain. Faint, but definitely artificial. Seems to be emanating from a derelict object. Looks like a piece of debris, but the energy readings suggest otherwise." He swiveled his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Can you get a visual?" A moment later, the main screen flickered, resolving into a grainy image. It was a fragment of something large, metallic and ornate, drifting silently in the void. Strange glyphs adorned its surface, pulsing with a faint ethereal glow. "Well, that's different," Valerius admitted, scratching his chin. "Anything on its composition?" "Mostly unknown alloys, Captain. The energy signature is interfering with our sensors. I'm getting traces of temporal distortion." Temporal distortion. That was enough to send shivers down any spacefarer's spine. Time meddling was a dangerous game, and the Cygnus, a notoriously isolationist and powerful species, were rumored to be the only ones who possessed any real mastery of it. Before Valerius could voice his concerns, a voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain Valerius, this is Zora Kalin, requesting permission to address the bridge." Zora Kalin. The xenoarchaeologist he'd reluctantly agreed to transport to the Outer Rim. A bright, enthusiastic young woman with theories as outlandish as her passion for uncovering lost civilizations. He sighed. "Put her through, Jessa." Zora's face appeared on a smaller screen, her eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, did you see it? The artifact." "We did, Zora. And I'm already getting a bad feeling about this. It reeks of Cygnus tech." "Exactly," Zora exclaimed, bouncing slightly. "This could be a fragment of the chronarium itself. I've theorized for years that they scattered pieces of it throughout the galaxy to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Captain, we have to retrieve it." Valerius massaged his temples. "Zara, the Cygnus Council wouldn't give us the time of day, let alone appreciate us poking around their lost technology. They barely tolerate humans as it is. But this could change everything, Captain. This could prove that my theories about the chronarium are correct. It could bridge the gap between our civilizations. Please, Captain, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." He hesitated. Zara's enthusiasm was infectious, and the prospect of a genuine discovery tugged at his adventurous spirit. Besides, the credits he would earn for delivering the artifact could keep the Stardust Drifter running for another year. "All right, Zora," he conceded. "We'll retrieve the fragment. But if the Cygnus come down on us like a flock of angry space birds, I'm blaming you." Zora whooped with joy. "You won't regret this, Captain. I promise." The Stardust Drifter maneuvered closer to the derelict fragment, its tractor beam gently pulling it into the cargo bay. Zora practically vibrated with anticipation as she supervised the operation, her fingers itching to get a closer look. A few days later, they arrived at the Cygnus system. The Cygnus, with their towering crystalline structures and an aura of ancient power, were a sight to behold, but their reputation for arrogance and xenophobia preceded them. The Stardust Drifter was granted a begrudging audience with Counselor Vorin, a high-ranking member of the Cygnus Council. Vorin, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering geometric shell, regarded Valerius and Zara with thinly veiled disdain. Humans, Vorin intoned, his voice a resonant hum that seemed to vibrate the very air. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Valerius stepped forward, trying to project an air of confidence he didn't quite feel. Counselor Vorin, we have come bearing a discovery of potentially great significance. We retrieved this fragment from a derelict location. He gestured towards the artifact, which was displayed on a holographic platform. Vorin's energy form flickered, his attention momentarily drawn to the fragment. An insignificant trinket, he declared after a moment. Of no consequence. Zara bristled. Insignificant? This could be a piece of the chronarium. It could unlock secrets of time itself. Vorin turned his attention to Zara, his energy form intensifying. Silence, human. Your species knows nothing of the chronarium. It is beyond your comprehension. But the glyphs, the energy signature, they match my research on temporal anomalies. I'm certain this fragment holds a key to understanding the chronarium's true purpose. Vorin remained unmoved. Your theories are fanciful, human, nothing more. The Cygnus Council has no need for your insights. Take your trinket and leave our system immediately. Valerius sighed. He'd expected as much. With all due respect, Counselor, we believe this artifact warrants further investigation. Perhaps your own scholars could examine it. Our scholars have more important matters to attend to than entertaining the delusions of a primitive species. This audience is over. Vorin turned away, dismissing them with a wave of his energy form. Dejected but not defeated, Zara and Valerius returned to the Stardust Drifter. I can't believe it, Zara fumed. They wouldn't even consider the possibility. They're so blinded by their own arrogance. I told you it was a long shot, Zara, Valerius said, trying to sound sympathetic. But we tried. Now let's get out of here before they change their minds and decide to confiscate the drifter. As they prepared to depart, a series of strange occurrences began to ripple through the Cygnus Council chambers. Flickering lights, distorted echoes, and unsettling visions plagued the assembled counselors. Vorin, despite his initial dismissal, felt a growing unease. Something was happening, something he couldn't explain. The artifact, it seemed, was far from insignificant. Back on the Stardust Drifter, Valerius nursed another synth coffee, the bitter taste doing little to soothe his growing apprehension. Zara, however, remained stubbornly optimistic, poring over scans of the artifact with feverish intensity. They're wrong, Captain, she insisted, her voice tight with frustration. I know they are. This artifact is more than just a trinket. It's a key, I can feel it. A key to what, Zara? Valerius asked, his skepticism evident. A locked vault filled with Cygnus arrogance. A key to the chronarium, she replied, her eyes gleaming with conviction. To understanding the true nature of time itself. Don't you see? This could rewrite everything we know about the galaxy. Before Valerius could respond, the comm system chimed. Jessa's voice, usually calm and collected, was laced with urgency. Captain, we've got an incoming transmission. Encrypted, and the source is, well, it's complicated. Complicated how? It's coming from within the Cygnus system, but it's bouncing off multiple relay stations. Someone doesn't want to be traced. Valerius frowned. Put it through, Jessa, but keep a close eye on those relays. I want to know who's trying to contact us. A distorted voice filled the bridge, crackling with static. Captain Valerius. This is Lysander. I know about the artifact you retrieved. Valerius exchanged a look with Zara. Who is this Lysander? Zara's eyes widened. Lysander. He was a Cygnus scholar. He specialized in temporal mechanics, but he was ostracized for his unorthodox theories. Unorthodox? Valerius prompted. He believed that the chronarium was not just a repository of knowledge, but a tool that could be used to manipulate time itself. Valerius's apprehension deepened. And the Cygnus Council didn't approve of this theory, I presume. Let's just say he's not on their Christmas card list, Zara said dryly. Lysander's voice crackled again. I overheard your audience with Counselor Vorin. I know he dismissed the artifact, but I assure you, it is of paramount importance. It is a fragment of the Chronarium's core, a resonating key that can unlock its deepest secrets. And why should we trust you, Lysander? Valerius asked, his voice laced with suspicion. You're a disgraced scholar, hiding in the shadows. What's your angle? My angle is the truth, Captain, Lysander replied. The Cygnus Council is suppressing knowledge of the Chronarium's true potential. They fear what might happen if its power falls into the wrong hands, but they are also blind to the dangers of its misuse. The artifact you possess is destabilizing the temporal fabric of this system. The disturbances you've undoubtedly noticed are only the beginning. Disturbances. Valerius frowned. He hadn't noticed anything specific, but he trusted Jessa's judgment, and she had mentioned temporal distortions near the artifact. Subtle anomalies, Lysander explained. Glitches in reality, echoes of the past and future bleeding into the present. They will intensify, Captain. And if the artifact is not properly secured, they could unravel the very fabric of space-time. Zara gasped. He's right, Captain. I've been running simulations. The artifact's energy signature is fluctuating wildly. It's like it's resonating with something. Valerius rubbed his temples, his head swimming with conflicting information. He was a simple merchant captain, not a temporal physicist. But he trusted Zora's expertise, and Lysander's warnings, however cryptic, felt unsettlingly plausible. All right, Lysander, he said. Let's say I believe you. What do you suggest we do? You must bring the artifact to me, Lysander replied. I have a hidden laboratory on the outskirts of the Cygnus system. I can analyze it, stabilize its energy signature, and unlock its secrets. But you must be discreet. The Council is watching. They will not hesitate to silence anyone who threatens their control over the Chronarium. Valerius hesitated. Trusting a disgraced scholar was a risky proposition, but the potential consequences of ignoring Lysander's warnings were even more dire. How do we know you're not leading us into a trap? He asked. You don't, Lysander admitted. But I am the only one who can help you understand what you possess. The choice is yours, Captain. Ignore me and risk the unraveling of reality. Or trust me and face the wrath of the Cygnus Council. The decision weighed heavily on Valerius. He looked at Zora, her face etched with a mixture of excitement and concern. He looked at Jessa, her fingers flying across the console, tracking the encrypted transmission. He looked at the artifact, pulsing with its strange, ethereal glow. All right, Lysander, he said finally. We'll meet you, but you'd better not be wasting our time. I assure you, Captain, Lysander replied, his voice tinged with urgency. Time is of the essence. The transmission cut off, leaving Valerius with a gnawing sense of unease. He had just made a pact with a pariah, and he was about to embark on a mission that could bring him into direct conflict with the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Jessa, he said, turning to his first mate, can you trace that transmission? I want to know exactly where Lysander is hiding. Jessa nodded, her expression grim. I'll do my best, Captain, but whoever set up those relays is good. It's going to take some time. We don't have time, Jessa, Valerius said. We need to move fast. Plot a course for the outer rim of the Cygnus system. I want to be as far away from the Council's prying eyes as possible. Aye, Captain, Jessa replied, her fingers already flying across the console. As the Stardust Drifter accelerated away from the Cygnus homeworld, Zora approached Valerius, her eyes shining with excitement. This is it, Captain, she exclaimed. This is the opportunity I've been waiting for. We're going to uncover the secrets of the Chronarium. Valerius managed a weak smile. Let's just hope those secrets don't get us killed, Zara. Navigating the Cygnus system proved to be a treacherous task. The Council's surveillance network was extensive, and Jessa had to use all her skill and ingenuity to evade detection. They dodged patrol ships, bypassed sensor arrays, and navigated through asteroid fields, their every move shadowed by the unseen eyes of the Cygnus. Finally, after days of tense maneuvering, they reached the designated coordinates. It was a desolate region of space, far from any inhabited planets or established trade routes. A small, unassuming asteroid drifted silently in the void. "This is it, Captain," Jessa announced. "According to Lysander's coordinates, his laboratory is located within that asteroid." Valerius gazed at the asteroid, his apprehension growing. It looked like nothing more than a chunk of rock, but he knew that appearances could be deceiving. "All right, Zara," he said, "prepare the artifact for transport. Jessa, keep a close watch on the scanners. I want to know if anyone is following us." Zara nodded, her excitement barely contained. She carefully placed the artifact in a shielded container, ensuring that its energy signature remained concealed. As they approached the asteroid, a hidden docking bay opened, revealing the dimly lit tunnel. Valerius piloted the Stardust Drifter inside, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what awaited them in the depths of that asteroid. "Welcome, Captain Valerius," a voice echoed through the tunnel. "I have been expecting you." Lysander emerged from the shadows, his face pale and gaunt, his eyes burning with intensity. He was dressed in simple robes, his Cygnus features betraying his former status as a respected scholar. "You took your time," he said, his voice laced with impatience. "The temporal disturbances are growing stronger. We must act quickly." Valerius stepped out of the Stardust Drifter, his hand resting on his sidearm. "Let's see what you've got, Lysander. And let's hope this is worth the risk." Lysander led them deeper into the asteroid, through a maze of corridors and chambers filled with strange devices and flickering holographic displays. The air crackled with energy, and the walls seemed to vibrate with an unseen force. Finally, they reached a large, circular chamber at the heart of the asteroid. In the center of the chamber stood a complex apparatus of wires, crystals, and pulsating energy fields. "This is my laboratory," Lysander announced, his voice filled with pride. "Here we will unlock the secrets of the Chronarium." He turned to Zara, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Now, human, let us begin." Lysander, oblivious to Valerius's growing unease, bustled about his laboratory, adjusting dials and muttering arcane formulas under his breath. Zara, her eyes wide with fascination, peppered him with questions about the apparatus and its function. "The core resonator," Lysander explained, gesturing to the central device. "It's designed to interface with the artifact, to stabilize its temporal energy, and allow us to access its memories." "Memories?" Valerius asked, his skepticism returning. "You're saying this thing can show us the past?" "Not just the past, Captain," Lysander replied. "The Chronarium is a repository of all time, past, present, and future. The artifact is a key that can unlock those possibilities." Valerius remained unconvinced, but he kept his doubts to himself. He was more concerned about the present danger than the potential secrets of the past. "How long will this take?" he asked. "The longer we stay here, the greater the risk of the Cygnus Council finding us." "Patience, Captain," Lysander said, his voice dismissive. "Temporal mechanics is not a science for the impatient." He activated the resonator, and the chamber filled with a low hum. The artifact, still encased in its shielded container, began to glow with an intense light. "The resonance is building," Zora announced, her voice filled with excitement. "I'm detecting temporal fluctuations throughout the lab." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the hum of the resonator intensified. A wave of energy washed over the chamber, causing the walls to shimmer and distort. "What's happening?" Valerius demanded, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. "The artifact is unstable," Lysander shouted, his face contorted with panic. "The resonance is too strong. I can't control it." The chamber began to shake violently, and cracks appeared in the walls. Temporal anomalies erupted throughout the lab, creating fleeting glimpses of other times and places. Valerius saw flashes of ancient Cygnus cities, futuristic battlefields, and alien landscapes that defied description. "We have to shut it down," Zara yelled, her voice barely audible above the chaos. Lysander frantically manipulated the controls, but nothing seemed to work. The resonator continued to build in intensity, threatening to tear the laboratory apart. Suddenly, the shielded container shattered, releasing the artifact into the open. The artifact pulsed with raw temporal energy, its glyphs glowing with an unearthly light. Valerius knew he had to act fast. He lunged towards the artifact, intending to grab it and shut down the resonator manually. But before he could reach it, a figure materialized in the center of the chamber, bathed in a blinding light. It was a Cygnus, but not like any Valerius had ever seen before. This one was clad in ornate armor, its energy form radiating power and authority. "High Proctor Theron," Lysander whispered, his voice filled with dread. "What are you doing here?" Theron ignored Lysander. His attention focused on the artifact. "The Cranarium's power will be mine," he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "And I will not allow you to interfere." He raised his hand, and a bolt of energy shot from his fingertips, striking the resonator. The device exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, plunging the laboratory into darkness. When the lights flickered back on, Theron was gone, along with the artifact. Lysander lay slumped on the floor, his body convulsing. He used me," Lysander gasped, his voice weak. "He knew I could activate the artifact. He wanted it for himself." Zara rushed to Lysander's side, attempting to stabilize him. "What did he mean, the Cranarium's power?" she asked. "What does he want to do with it?" Lysander coughed, his eyes filled with pain. "He seeks to rewrite history," he whispered, "to reshape the galaxy in his own image. He is a madman, driven by ambition and a thirst for power." Valerius cursed under his breath. He had stumbled into something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. "We have to stop him," he said. "But how? He has the artifact, and he's already one step ahead of us." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the laboratory. "Perhaps I can be of assistance." A young Cygnus emerged from the shadows, his face etched with determination. He was dressed in the robes of an initiate, but his eyes held a spark of defiance. "I am Callan," he said. "I was an acolyte of High Proctor Theron, but I have seen his true nature, and I can no longer serve him." "Why should we trust you?" Valerius asked, his hand still resting on his sidearm. "Because I know Theron's plans," Callan replied. "I know where he is going, and what he intends to do. He plans to use the artifact to unlock the Cranarium's core, to gain access to its full power. He believes he can control time itself." "And where is this Cranarium's core?" Zara asked, her eyes filled with hope. "It is located within the Citadel of Time, a hidden fortress deep within the Cygnus system," Callan replied. "It is heavily guarded, protected by temporal barriers and ancient defenses, but I know a secret passage, a way to bypass the main security grid." Valerius considered Callan's offer. Trusting another Cygnus was a risky proposition, but they were running out of options. "What's your price?" he asked. "Why are you helping us?" "I seek redemption," Callan replied. "I was blinded by Theron's promises, seduced by his vision of a perfect galaxy. But I now see that his path leads only to destruction. I want to help you stop him, to save my people from his madness." Valerius looked at Zara, seeking her opinion. She nodded, her eyes telling him to trust Callan. "All right," Valerius said. "We'll take you with us. But if you betray us, Callan, I promise you'll regret it." Callan nodded, his expression grim. "I understand the risks. Let us go. Theron will not wait." With Lysander stabilized as much as possible, but unable to move, Valerius, Zara, and Callan returned to the Stardust Drifter. Jessa, who had been monitoring the situation from the ship, greeted them with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "What happened down there, Captain?" she asked. "I detected a massive energy surge, and who's the sickness?" Valerius quickly explained the situation, outlining Theron's plan and Callan's defection. Jessa frowned. "This is getting out of hand, Captain. We're talking about rewriting history here. Are we really prepared for this?" "We don't have a choice," Jessa, Valerius replied. "Theron has to be stopped. And Callan is our only chance of reaching him." "All right, Captain," Jessa said, her voice resolute. "Plot a course for the Citadel of Time. Let's hope this secret passage of Callan's is as good as he claims." As the Stardust Drifter prepared to jump to hyperspace, Valerius looked at his companions. He knew they were embarking on a suicide mission. The odds were stacked against them, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. But he also knew that they couldn't back down. They had a responsibility to stop Theron, to protect the integrity of time itself. "Hold on tight," he said, his voice filled with determination. "This is going to be a bumpy ride." The Stardust Drifter jumped to hyperspace, leaving the shattered laboratory and the ravaged asteroid behind. They were heading straight into the heart of the Cygnus system, towards a confrontation that would determine the future of the galaxy. And Valerius knew, with a sinking feeling, that they were woefully unprepared for what awaited them. The Stardust Drifter plunged into hyperspace, leaving behind the relative safety of the outer rim and venturing into the heart of Cygnus territory. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Callan, the young Cygnus defector, stood nervously near the navigation console, his gaze fixed on the swirling vortex of hyperspace. "Are you sure about this passage, Callan?" Valerius asked, his voice gruff. "If Theron finds out we're using it, we're as good as dead." "I am certain, Captain," Callan replied, his voice trembling slightly. "It is a secret known only to a few initiates. Theron would never suspect that we would dare to use it." "Let's hope you're right," Jessa muttered from her station. "Because if we run into any trouble, I'm holding you personally responsible." Zara, meanwhile, was poring over holographic schematics of the Citadel of Time, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The Citadel is heavily fortified," she said. "Temporal shields, energy barriers, automated defenses. It's going to be a challenge just to get inside. That's why we're using the secret passage," Valerius reminded her. "It's supposed to bypass the main defenses." "Supposed to," Zora echoed, her voice doubtful. "But how old is this passage? Has it been compromised? Are there any countermeasures in place?" Callan shifted nervously. I do not know," he admitted. "I only know that it exists. I have never used it myself." Valerius sighed. He was relying on the word of a defector, using a secret passage that may or may not exist, to infiltrate the most heavily guarded fortress in the Cygnus system. What could possibly go wrong? After what felt like an eternity, the Stardust Drifter dropped out of hyperspace. They were in a hidden sector of space, far from any major planets or star systems. Before them loomed the Citadel of Time, a colossal structure of shimmering crystal and pulsating energy. "By the stars," Jessa breathed, her voice filled with awe. "It's even more impressive than I imagined." The Citadel was a fortress unlike any other. Its walls seemed to shift and distort, its shape constantly changing. Temporal anomalies flickered around its surface, creating fleeting glimpses of other times and realities. "This is it," Valerius said, his voice grim. "Time to see if Callan's secret passage is the real deal." He piloted the Stardust Drifter towards a seemingly empty patch of space near the Citadel. Callan guided him, providing precise coordinates and instructions. "Now, Captain," Callan said, his voice tense, "engage the cloaking device, and prepare for a rough ride." Valerius activated the cloaking device, and the Stardust Drifter vanished from sight. He then followed Callan's instructions, maneuvering the ship through a series of complex maneuvers. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off their feet. Alarms blared throughout the vessel, and the lights flickered ominously. What was that? Valerius demanded, struggling to regain control of the ship. We've entered the temporal stream, Callan replied, his voice strained. The passage is unstable. Hold on tight. The Stardust drifter was buffeted by waves of temporal energy, its hull groaning under the strain. The ship seemed to be caught in a time warp, its trajectory erratic and unpredictable. Valerius fought to maintain control, his hands gripping the controls with white knuckles. Jessa frantically worked to repair the damaged systems, while Zara monitored the temporal fluctuations. We're almost there, Zara shouted. I can see the exit, just a little further. With a final surge of power, Valerius steered the Stardust drifter through the temporal stream and into a hidden docking bay within the citadel of time. The ship slammed against the docking bay walls, its systems groaning in protest. But they had made it. They were inside the citadel. We're here, Valerius said, his voice filled with relief. Now the real challenge begins. They disembarked from the Stardust drifter, cautiously making their way through the docking bay. The air was thick with temporal energy, and the walls seemed to hum with an unseen power. This way, Callan said, leading them through a maze of corridors and chambers. The Chronarium's core is located deep within the citadel. We must reach it before Theron does. As they ventured deeper into the citadel, they encountered a series of temporal traps and illusions. Phantoms from the past and future materialized before them, testing their resolve and challenging their sanity. Valerius saw visions of his past failures, his lost loves, and his greatest fears. Zara was confronted with images of alternate realities, where her theories were proven wrong and her life was meaningless. Callan was haunted by the ghosts of his former comrades, accusing him of betrayal and treachery. But they pressed on, determined to overcome the obstacles that stood in their way. They knew that the fate of the galaxy depended on their success. Finally, they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the citadel. In the center of the chamber stood a colossal gateway, pulsating with temporal energy. The Chronarium's core, Callan whispered, his voice filled with awe. It is even more magnificent than I imagined. As they approached the gateway, a figure materialized before them, blocking their path. It was High Proctor Theron, his eyes glowing with power. I have been expecting you, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. I knew you would try to interfere with my plans. Theron, Valerius said, his voice filled with anger. This has to end. You can't control time. It's too dangerous. Dangerous, Theron scoffed. I am the only one who can wield its power responsibly. I will reshape the galaxy, create a perfect world, free from suffering and conflict. You're insane, Zora said. You'll destroy everything. Silence, human, Theron snapped. Your primitive mind cannot comprehend my vision. He raised his hand, and a bolt of energy shot from his fingertips, striking Callan. The young Cygnus fell to the ground, his body convulsing. Callan, Valerius shouted, rushing to his aid. Theron laughed. You are fools, he said. You cannot stop me. The Chronarium's power is mine. He turned towards the gateway, intending to unlock its secrets and claim its power. But before he could reach it, a figure materialized before him, blocking his path. It was Astrea, the ancient AI construct, guardian of the Chronarium. You shall not pass, she declared, her voice resonating with power. The Chronarium is not yours to control. A battle erupted between Theron and Astrea, their powers clashing in a whirlwind of temporal energy. Valerius, Zara, and Jessa watched in awe, unsure of how to intervene. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, dependent on the outcome of this epic confrontation. And they knew, with a sinking feeling, that they were woefully unprepared for the challenges that lay ahead. The battle between Theron and Astrea raged within the Chronarium's core. Bolts of temporal energy ripped through the chamber, distorting reality and creating fleeting glimpses of alternate timelines. Valerius, Zara, and Jessa could only watch in awe and terror, unsure of how to intervene. Callan, still recovering from Theron's attack, struggled to his feet. "We must help Astrea," he gasped. "Theron is too powerful. She cannot defeat him alone." "How?" Valerius asked, his voice filled with desperation. "We're just humans. What can we possibly do against a Cygnus High Proctor wielding the power of the Chronarium?" "We can distract him," Zora suggested, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We can draw his attention away from Astrea, give her an opening to strike." "That's suicide," Jessa protested. "We'd be walking right into his line of fire." "It's our only chance," Zara insisted. "We can't just stand here and watch while Theron destroys everything." Valerius hesitated. He knew Zora was right, but the prospect of facing Theron's wrath was terrifying. Still, he couldn't abandon Astrea, the AI construct who was fighting to protect the Chronarium. "All right," he said, his voice resolute. "Let's do it. Jessa, you're with me. Zara, stay with Callan and try to find a way to help Astrea from a distance." Valerius and Jessa charged towards Theron, firing their weapons. The energy blasts bounced harmlessly off his temporal shields, but they did manage to draw his attention away from Astrea. "Insolent mortals," Theron snarled, turning towards them. "You dare to defy me." He unleashed a barrage of temporal energy, forcing Valerius and Jessa to dive for cover. The blasts ripped through the chamber, shattering the walls and creating new temporal anomalies. As Valerius and Jessa dodged Theron's attacks, Zara and Callan worked to decipher the Chronarium's core's controls. Zara tapped furiously at a console, trying to find a way to disrupt Theron's connection to the Chronarium. Suddenly, the gateway to the Chronarium's core shimmered, and a figure stepped through. It was Torin, Zora's mentor, an elderly xenoarchaeologist, with a twinkle in his eye. "Zara," he exclaimed, his voice filled with relief. "I've been searching for you. I know about Theron's plan, and I know how to stop him." "Torin," Zora cried, rushing to his side. "What are you doing here? How did you find us?" "I follow the artifact's energy signature," Torin replied. "I knew you would be drawn to the Chronarium, and I knew that Theron would try to exploit its power." "But how do we stop him?" Zora asked. "He's too powerful. He's controlling time itself." "He's not controlling time," Torin corrected. "He's merely manipulating it. He's using the artifact to amplify his own temporal abilities, but he doesn't understand the Chronarium's true purpose." "What is its true purpose?" Zara asked. "The Chronarium is not a weapon," Torin explained. "It's a tool for understanding and healing. It was created to repair temporal fractures, to mend the wounds in the fabric of space-time." "Temporal fractures?" Zara asked, confused. "Yes," Torin replied. "The Chronarium has been misused in the past, its power exploited for selfish gain. This has created tears in the temporal fabric, threatening to unravel reality itself. And Theron wants to make it worse," Callan said, realizing what was going to happen if Theron succeeded. "Exactly. We have to stop it," Zora replied, looking at Torin. "Not anymore," Torin said, producing a small device from his pocket. "I created a temporal disruptor. It will temporarily sever Theron's connection to the artifact." Torin activated the device, and a wave of energy washed over the chamber. Theron staggered, his control over the temporal energies faltering. "What's happening?" he cried, his voice filled with panic. "I'm losing my connection." Astrea seized the opportunity, unleashing a powerful blast of energy that struck Theron head-on. The High Proctor was thrown against the wall, his armor shattered, and the artifact fell from his grasp. Zara rushed forward and retrieved the artifact, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at Torin, unsure of what to do next. "Now, Zara," Torin said, his voice calm and reassuring. "Focus your mind. Connect with the artifact. Let it guide you to the temporal fractures." Zara closed her eyes and concentrated, her mind reaching out to the artifact. She felt a surge of energy coursing through her veins, a flood of images and sensations overwhelming her senses. She saw visions of twisted timelines, shattered realities, and gaping wounds in the fabric of space-time. She saw the temporal fractures, the tears that threatened to unravel the galaxy. "I see them," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I see the fractures." "Good," Torrin said. "Now use the artifact to heal them. Channel your energy, focus your will, and mend the wounds." Zora followed Torrin's instructions, channeling her energy into the artifact. The glyphs on its surface glowed with an intense light, and beams of energy shot out, reaching towards the temporal fractures. As Zora worked to heal the fractures, Theron struggled to regain his footing. He glared at Zora, his eyes filled with hatred. "You cannot stop me," he snarled. "I will not allow you to interfere with my destiny." He unleashed another barrage of temporal energy, but Austria intercepted the blasts, protecting Zora from harm. The battle between Theron and Astria continued, but the tide had turned. With Zora healing the temporal fractures, Theron's power was waning. Suddenly, a new voice echoed through the chamber. "Enough, Theron." A group of Cygnus elders materialized before them, their faces etched with disapproval. "High Proctor Theron," one of the elders said, his voice filled with disappointment. "Your actions have brought shame upon our people. You have abused the power of the Chronarium, threatened the stability of time itself." "You do not understand," Theron protested. "I was trying to save us all." "You were trying to seize power," the elder countered. "You were willing to sacrifice everything for your own selfish ambition." "I will not let you all stop my glorious destiny," shouted Theron, as it uses its powers to throw a temporal spear toward the group of people. As it almost hit them, Kalen jumped in front to defend them, being directly hit in the stomach. "Kalen!" screamed Zora and Valerius at the same time. "I did what I thought it was right," were Kalen's last words as it fades away and disappear. The elders turned to Valerius, Zora, and Jessa. "You have shown courage and wisdom," the elder said. "You have proven yourselves worthy of the Chronarium's secrets." "What will happen now?" Valerius asked. "Theron will be stripped of his title and exiled," the elder replied. "The Chronarium will be placed under new stewardship, and the temporal fractures will be healed." "And what about us?" Zora asked. "What will happen to humanity?" "Humanity has proven itself to be a valuable ally," the elder said. "You have earned our respect and our gratitude. We will welcome you as equals among the galactic community." Zora smiled, her heart filled with hope. The long and arduous journey had finally come to an end. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. But she knew that the journey was far from over. There were still countless mysteries to uncover, countless challenges to overcome, and she was ready to face them all, side by side with her friends and allies. As they prepared to leave the Chronarium, Zora paused, her gaze fixed on the gateway to the core. She felt a deep sense of responsibility, a desire to protect the Chronarium and its secrets. "What's wrong, Zora?" Valerius asked, noticing her hesitation. I feel like this is more than just a victory," she said. "It's a new beginning, a chance for us to build a better future, a future where all species can live together in peace and harmony." Valerius smiled and put his arm around her shoulder. "I couldn't agree more, Zora, and I know that together we can make that future a reality." With a final glance at the Chronarium's core, they turned and walked away, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The echoes of Ethel had been silenced, but the dawn of a new era was just beginning.